right, everyone. So now let's have our program. This is ZooTampa Saves Florida Manatees. Now this program is part of our summer reading, and the theme this year is Oceans of Possibilities. We have lots of things going on this summer, virtual and in-person programming, reading challenges, prizes, all sorts of stuff. And you can find out all about it at our website, hcplc.org/summer. So I recommend you go on over there and check it out. It's a lot to look at. And of course, you're in the right place if you're here for ZT Saves Florida Manatees. Our guest presenter will be starting in just a moment, but before that, we just have a few things we'd like to talk with you about. One is we want to thank our great partner, ZooTampa at Lowry Park. We're happy to be working with them again on programming. Always a great partnership we have with them, and great staff who come in and share their knowledge. And also, before we begin, we want to recommend that you continue the experience after this program. We have a few great ebooks that we've selected from our Hoopla collection. Right here, it's called Florida Manatees, Biology, Behavior, and Conservation. And we also have one for younger readers called Kobee Manatee, Heading Home to Florida. Now, I've mentioned that these are both available through Hoopla. With Hoopla, there's no wait. You can download them immediately and read them now. And if you want to find out more about Hoopla and our other ebook collections, you can go to hcplc.org/ebooks. All right, with that done, we are now going to share a great video that the team over at ZooTampa put together, and we'll follow that with a guest presentation from one of the staff. So without any further delay, here is the video.
Here at ZooTampa, we have a Manatee Critical Care Center where our goal is to take in, rehab, and release sick, injured, or orphaned manatees. So we can see them arrive here to us for a number of different reasons. We see boat strike cases, red tide poisoning, entanglements, orphaned calves, and cold stress cases in the winter. So our goal with every case that comes through our door is to rehab them and release them as quickly as we can to get them back out into Florida waters. Their stay here with us can vary a lot depending on what their cause of rescue was. We work very closely with Fish and Wildlife, who usually goes out and does the rescues, and we have a stranding team that will go out and assist with those rescues and bring the animals into us. Most of our cases are citizen reported, so it's people out in the waterways who see a manatee that looks like it's struggling and in need of assistance. There is a marine mammal stranding hotline that you can call at 1-888-404-FWCC to report those. When you visit us at ZooTampa, you'll see we have 3 critical care pools where we keep our critical patients. So that is any manatee that is still undergoing daily treatments of some kind. Once they are no longer considered critical and able to manage a little deeper water, we have 2 display pools that we can send them out to, which is a much deeper, more natural area for them to kind of reacclimate to what wildlife will be like and socialize with other manatees until they are ready for release back to the wild. So one of the cases that we see here are orphaned calves, and they're a very challenging case. Usually they come in very young, separated from mom. We never know exactly why they had been separated from mom, but they cannot survive on their own. They usually nurse for about a year to 2 years from their mother, and they're not receiving that nutrition if they get separated. So that is where we have to jump in and make sure we're giving them all the nutrition that they need, and that is in the form of bottle feeding. So if we have a calf that comes in that would still be dependent on receiving milk from mom, we get them started on a bottle right away so that they can start getting that nutrition. So we have big goals for them once they get here. They should gain about a pound a day, so we keep up with their weight gain very closely and feed them about every 4 hours around the clock until they're a little bit older, to make sure that they're getting everything they need and growing as quickly and efficiently as they can. Once they're about 9 months to a year old, we'll wean them off the bottle, and they'll stay with us until they're about 2 years old, because that's when they would naturally leave mom in the wild, and that gives them time to start eating solid foods and socializing with other manatees. And once they're ready for release, they'll be about 600 pounds. And we'll belt them with a satellite tracking device so that we can monitor them for their first year of life in the wild to make sure that they're successful. There's two really important steps they have to learn from mom in the wild that our orphan calves don't have the opportunity to learn, and that's to make sure that they can find food and make sure they know how to migrate to warm water sites. So we track them to make sure that they are successful in both those aspects, and we will release them directly into a warm water site so they know how to find that warm water in the winter. So everyone can help keep manatees safe by simple, easy things in your everyday life, by making sure that you don't litter so that that litter does not make its way into their waterways. So we want to make sure we keep our waterways clean for all wildlife, including manatees, and also practicing safe boating. Unfortunately, almost every manatee in the wild has been hit by a boat at some point in their lifetime, so it's really important to make sure if you're out on the waterways you're obeying the speed zones, and also having a spotter to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for wildlife that may be in your path. When we all work together, we definitely can make a difference for manatees both here and out in the wild.
All right, that was a great video. And now we would like to bring on our guest presenter from Zoo Tampa. We have Kelsey, who will be joining us to talk to you a little bit more about manatees. Hey, Kelsey, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Great. We're happy to have you here. That was an exciting, informative video, but we look forward to hearing you as well. So I'm going to jump off and turn off my camera and microphone, but I'll be right here if you need me, okay?
All right, sounds great. So, hi everyone. My name is Kelsey, and I am part of the animal care team that has the pleasure to care for all the manatees that come through the doors of our Manatee Critical Care Center. So, like you saw in the video, we rescue and rehabilitate sick, injured, and orphaned manatees with the end goal for every single one of those manatees to get released back to the wild. We are one of 4 critical care centers throughout the state of Florida. So our hospital typically covers along the entire west coast of Florida. We get a ton of manatees from down south near Naples, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, but we also get some manatees from Tampa Bay and St. Pete right here where we live. So there are many reasons why manatees come to us, and we do try to release them as close to where they were rescued as possible. They are migratory species, so we do that in hopes that they're familiar with different warm water sites or food sources in that area where they're from. Manatees have been seen as far as Texas and as north as the Carolinas, so we want to make sure that they're familiar with that area. Those warm water sites are a very important part of their migration pattern. One of the reasons we get manatees in are cold stress syndrome cases, so they are very cold intolerant species. 68 degrees is really only the threshold that they can survive in. Sometimes in the winter months when it gets really cold, then they get stuck in 60-degree water for a long time. They can get severely ill and get a lot of wounds, and kind of how we would get frostbite, they'll get abscesses and lesions and things on their body. So they definitely need to come into the hospital. So that's why those warm water sites are super important for them to know where those are. And that's why you might see them going to power plants or springs in the summer and things like that. They're searching for that warm water. But some of the other reasons that we get them in, like mentioned in the video, are those orphan calves, red tide illness, entanglements. We have all sorts of those cases right now, especially boat strikes. We do have a handful of boat strikes. We have 15 manatees in total at the moment. The most that we've had was, I believe, the upper 20s. A couple winters ago, we were at capacity for multiple months due to a cold stress snap that we had. It got really cold in the winter months here, so we got a lot of manatees rescued in from those cold waters. But right now, our 2 current critical patients that are back in our medical pools, if you guys visit the zoo and see them, they are both rescued from boat strike injuries. And boat strikes end up being the #1 cause of fatality for these species. So a lot of them pass away because they get hit by boats. And you might see a lot of scar patterns on manatees that you see out in the wild. And that's actually how we identify them, both in our hospital and out in the wild. We unfortunately use those scar patterns because they are that common. A research study found actually that 95% of adult manatees get hit 4 or more times by a boat throughout their lifetime, which is very heartbreaking. So if you guys are boaters or you are friends with boaters or things like that, just making sure to wear polarized sunglasses and having someone on the boat designated to be your manatee spotter. Those little things can make a huge difference for this species. They have very poor eyesight and hearing, so a lot of times when those boats are coming through those speed zones, they don't have all the time to get out of the way if one is coming right at them. Like I said, our two current cases are boat strikes. We have Jensen and Corduroy back in our medical pools that you might see. We try to name our manatees based on their cause of rescue or rescue location. We try to get creative. We've had over 600 manatees come through our hospital, and every manatee across all 4 hospitals has to have their own unique name. So if you guys have any fun, unique names coming up in the future, just let us know. We're always open to new ideas for our new patients. But like I mentioned, boat strikes are the issue that Jensen and Corduroy were rescued from. Both of them have propeller marks across their backs and on their tails. What's really dangerous about boat strikes is their chest is right underneath their back. So when the propeller of the boat or the impact of the watercraft gets them, a lot of times it can crack ribs, puncture lungs, and that's a lot of the cases that we get in here. So it can be very dangerous for them, and a lot of them end up passing away because they're getting hit by those boats. So just being careful out in the waters. We want all these manatees to stay around for years and years to come. So little changes in our everyday lives, making it easier for them to live and be a manatee, makes a huge difference in their population as a whole. But if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer them for you. And I think that's all I have for you.
All right. Thank you, Kelsey. That was great information there. So like she said, this is the time to ask questions. You should see a question section in your control panel. You can submit your questions there. Also, if you're watching on a tablet or phone, you tap the question mark icon, and then you can type in your questions that way. And it looks like we've got some questions coming. Someone's asking, how many baby manatees are there at the moment?
We actually have a handful of orphan calves right now. A lot of them rescued last year, so they are a little bit bigger. They're all reaching their year-old mark, but there are 4 in our large pool and then 1 in our smaller pool right now.
Okay. Someone is asking about their sleeping. Do they sleep underwater?
They do. You might see them rest on the bottom of the ocean surface or the middle of the water column or even at the surface of the water. They can hold their breath for up to 20 minutes. So they typically only rest for 20 minutes at a time.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. When you transport them, how do they breathe? I think that's the question. If I'm not doing this, getting your question right, please correct me, but I think that's what they're asking. How do they breathe when you transport them?
So manatees breathe air just like we do. They are mammals, so they can stay out of water for quite some time. We have had transports, like I said, a lot of our manatees come from down south. That could be a 3 to 5 hour drive, and they stay out of the water during that entire time. We have a box truck, and we have foam in the truck to support their body, and then we have water if we need to moisten up their skin or anything like that. But a lot of times they breathe on their own, but we are there with sponges and water if they ever need assistance.
Nice. All right. Oh, someone's asking, you mentioned the orphans. They're wondering how do manatees become orphans?
Unfortunately, we're not quite too sure what happens to their mom. A lot of times when orphan calves are called into Florida Fish and Wildlife or the rescue hotline, they are found alone and really malnourished. So we're not there when their mom separates from them. They are great moms. They typically stay with their calves for about a year and a half. So for them to leave their calf behind would mean they most likely got severely injured or sick or ended up passing away. Typically, they will leave their calf in a mangrove or under a boat dock if they're going out to eat, and then they always come back for it. So we always make sure to, if we do get a call for a calf, that we are staying there for hours throughout the day to make sure there are no adults in that area that do come back for it. But typically, unfortunately, we're not quite too sure what happens to their mom a lot of the time.
All right. Someone is asking, How old can manatees become? How old do they get?
The oldest known manatee lived to be 69 years old. Some of you who are born and raised in Florida might be familiar with the name Snooty. So he got that ripe age of 69, and he's still the oldest known manatee to ever make it that far. But right now, there are two currently in their guesstimated 60s at Miami Sea Aquarium. So all of the manatees that have reached that age have had human care at some point. So we think that the wild average age is really only into their 30s.
30s. Okay. Someone wants to know, do you enjoy working with manatees?
I love working with manatees. It's definitely a dream job. I love coming to work every day.
That's great. Someone's asking, is it illegal to harm them in Florida?
It is illegal. Even just offering water from a hose is illegal. Any interactions with a wild manatee is illegal in the state of Florida. They are a threatened animal who we're hoping to get back on the endangered species list due to the unusual mortality event that they underwent last year and are still undergoing this year. So any interaction, whether it's touching, feeding, offering water from a hose, all of that is considered illegal in the state of Florida.
Okay. All right, we have time for a few more questions here. Let's see. Someone is asking about when they're sick and if they need medicine. What ways do you give them medicine? Is there one way or are there different ways?
There's a few different ways we could give manatees their antibiotics that they need. What's really cool about our medical pools is they have false bottom floors, so they kind of work like a boat lift would work. We can close them into the pool and raise them up out of the water on the floor. And sometimes we can tube feed, so we have what's called a nasogastric tube. It goes through their nares, down their esophagus, into their stomach. We could give them electrolyte solution. For hydration purposes, we can grind up a head of romaine, give them like a romaine smoothie if they need some calories. And we could also grind up their pills for their medications and pour them down that tube as well. And then some other antibiotics are given through injections. So either tube feeding or injections are the most common ways that we give them to them.
Okay. I think you may have just answered this, but I'm going to ask, what do you think their favorite food is?
Their favorite food at the zoo would definitely be romaine. They are herbivores, so all they eat are plants. Out in the wild, they love seagrasses. But here at the zoo, we feed them a variety of produce, but also we have permits to go out and collect invasive species in Florida. So we give them hydrilla, water hyacinth, some eelgrass. So they get some wild natural diet like seagrasses, which they love, but they also get the romaine, endive, and escarole that they enjoy as well.
Interesting. All right, so we have time for one more question. And someone wants to know, do you release all of the manatees that you take in at the zoo?
Our goal is to release every single one, and we work extremely hard 24/7 to make that goal happen. But unfortunately, on some cases, there's only so much we can do, and we can't save them all. Some have such severe injuries that they don't end up making it, and they end up passing away after getting to our hospital, and those are the only cases that don't get released. We've had one manatee. He was rescued back in 2015. He was deemed non-releasable from a boat strike and pneumonia issue that he was dealing with. His lung capacity, which helped control his buoyancy throughout the water, so him going up to the surface and down to the bottom to eat, is permanently hurt by that, so he can't control it like he should. So he has some really heavy days and wouldn't be successful to be released into deep water out in the wild. So he is our only case ever since we've been opened that was deemed non-releasable. Every single other manatee was either released or unfortunately didn't make it.
All right, well, that is all the time we have for questions. Kelsey, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your knowledge and experience. And thanks to ZooTampa for doing this great work and partnering with us this summer.
Of course, we love manatees and they need all the help they can get right now. Yeah. So we're happy to do it, and we love educating the public about what they can do as well.
That's great. All right, so that's it for the program. Now, if you want to contact the library, you can call us at 813-273-3652, or you can go online at hcplc.org/contact. Also on our website, you can share your library story. You can also access our calendar of events where you can find out about programs like this one or in-person programming. You can find out all about those also on our summer landing page. And I believe that's it. So with that, I'll say thank you again, Kelsey, and thank you everyone who joined us this evening. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.